Welcome to another episode of Pushing My Cars with me, Paul Melon McFadden. I hope you guys are all well. It's been a minute since we've been able to find time to get together and catch up with you all, but we hope you're well. We're rolling along. We're pushing ourselves. We've been super busy in our own lives, but more of that will follow. I'm joined by my mate Mike. How are you going, Mike?
Melon, what's up, dude? You sound like you're giving updates on a flight, just like, ladies and gentlemen,
Yeah,
this is your pilot speaking, you know, and you got a
exactly.
headset, and he has a headset on for those that can't see us. He's feeling the part. Something must be going really well for him.
Yeah, I lost my Apple headset, the little ones I usually use, and I've had to steal this headset from my son for the audio. But there you go.
Well, you look good. You look professional. Thanks for showing up as you always do, sir.
And so here we are, Mike. We're recording this mid July, and it's been no joke. We've just been rolling with it, the two of us, working through life, professional challenges, family, etc. No doubt, like a lot of our listeners. Can we give a little maybe an update on what we've been up to?
Yeah, so since our last episode, it's been about 6 weeks roughly since our our gap, and man, it's just been very busy on both ends. Melon and I have not really talked. I'm currently overseas. I was cleared to deploy. I'm not really going to get into like where I'm at or what I'm doing or anything, but yeah, I've been over here for that time and jumping into another world as it seems sometimes and doing work, and it's just the world's crazy outside of the bubble, and I call the US being home, I call that the bubble. And you always think you know the world until you get out into it, and that's why we highly encourage travel as part of education and meet people and cultures and have difficult conversations, or learn about how the rest of the world thinks. But yeah, it's been very busy here, man. I was cleared to deploy after my injury, and I'm still rehabbing, which has been going great. I can't speak enough about the support and the staff that I've had through this. I'm back to squatting. I squatted 245 pounds the other day,
All
and
right.
uh, and I'm running up to 3 miles, but not consistently. I'm
So
running.
for the humans, Mike's squatting about 110 kilos, and he's running pretty much 5K.
Yes, for humans, yes.
Yeah.
See, this is why I highly encourage you to have a mature, of course, Aussie translator wherever you go in the world. Whenever you think you know something, they'll tell you you're wrong and then tell you the truth always. And I'm glad to have Melon in my life for this. But yeah, so it's coming along, man. I'm getting back to it, and it's not what it was. I'm still I still look funny when I run, and but there's only one way through it, and that's through it. So it's just been great though. With that, the people I work with have been phenomenal. The support I've had has been phenomenal, and like I said, this is my last one, man, and I've really just been taking it all in. I'm trying to have fun as much as possible, staying professional, of course, but I'm just trying to really take it all in on every level, every aspect. I want to remember it. I also want to focus on, we talk about legacy, but it's not big and flashy, but it's what you pass on and what people remember you for ultimately, that we want to be positive. And I've just had one after another great conversations and building relationships out here and trying to fix problems together, not just, an authoritarian approach all the time. But yeah, it's just been great, man. And I'm very happy. I'm grateful. Um, it's been what, 9 months since surgery, and I said it before, and I will continue to say it. It's been some of the best time in my life, just holistically. The growth has been amazing. The opportunities have been amazing. My life just feels like it's happening totally for me, not against me. And you're just listening to a grateful man right now, put it blatantly.
Super motivating, Mike. And, there's a lot to be said for having at the heart of legacy and being able to impact others is that in a professional sense, I think you have to have the individual pursuit of professional mastery, that there has to be a level of individual skill or capability that you have to have. You've got to be able to demonstrate it before you're going to be able to reach out and give people advice, before you're going to have a voice in the professional setting where people are going to listen to you and you're going to be able to impact. And so there's been, for you, a bit of a focus on regaining your fitness on top of all the layers of mastery you have, and being able to reach out and have great, impactful conversations with people. And I've been in a situation over here where I've rejoined the training system with the Australian military, with our pilots here, Army, Navy, Air Force, go through the one system over here.
Yeah.
And I'm doing my little course in the beginning before I start. I've got to be able to demonstrate professional mastery. I've got to be able to show the assessors that I know how to do what I'm going to be teaching, and I've got to demonstrate that myself before I'm going to get into that position again, where you've got a voice that people want to hear. They don't want to have the guy on the sideline yelling out comments where you haven't been able to do it. You can't be. No one cares what your opinion is until you can show them how well you can do it, right? So I'm in a similar little area there where there's this massive motivation and thought around legacy and where things are going down the track, and how are you going to leave the organization, people who come after us, and the ability to have that impact with people. If you've got the professional mastery part contained, then you're able to move into those higher level stuff, the emotional impacts, and being able to pass on guidance and mentoring comments as well. And I know I've been working through that part, Mike, just the gratitude I've been having and experiencing daily at work, to be so lucky to work with the team I'm working with down here in Victoria in Australia. It's just it's a wonderful place to be in at this stage of my career. I'm really loving it.
I can tell, man, because you just look happier, and all the updates, not just about that stuff, which I know you love professionally, because you love learning, you love pushing the envelope, you just want to be the best at what you do and everything that you do, Melon. And it's always a joy for me to be able to observe, because you are one of my mentors. You're one of my best friends, but you're also one of my mentors. And I'm never disappointed by the attitude and the approach that you take holistically to life, and how you deal with your job and how you speak about it. And then you come home and how you deal with your family and how you speak about them. And your role in every part of that is defined, and what you're doing. And you're just doing a great job, man. Now, I'm very proud of you. I'm happy for you. And man, cheers to this whole nother chapter of life, man, because it's great. It's great news.
Cheers, guys. There's me holding up a bit of merch here, Pushing Back Chaos mug. Well, praise from the praiseworthy. Yes, high praise indeed, Mike. I really appreciate you saying that. I've just had nothing but absolute admiration for you dealing with your injury setback, your mental adjustment to the new normal that had sort of befallen you, and many would have not gotten themselves back up so quickly, right? And I've just seen you actually move forward in life in all the other areas as a consequence of the attitude you displayed in the moment of a breakdown. The breakdown can lead to just wallowing and a lot of misery, but you had it lead you to a breakthrough into a new level of capacity, I think. And the people around you, friends, families, and co-workers, are certainly benefiting from the results of the attitude you're showing, man. So it's a hugely motivating space that you're occupying at the moment.
Well, it comes down to asking, if I don't do this, what does my life look like? But if I do
Mm.
do this, what can it look like? Right. And, this actually is a good point to bring up a listener question. We put out a post the other day, and the one that came back was, how do you deal with disappointment? And, just talking on that real quick, we have disappointments probably daily, right? Disappointment comes from expectation. We have an expectation of something and how it should turn out or how a person should be or something. And it's usually not realistic for the most part. There's usually some type of hope that's tossed in there or goodwill. And when you really put it into something and it doesn't turn out your way, then depending on how much you were hoping it turned out perfectly can really affect it, because more than likely it's not going to be 100% what you thought it was. And you have to just like really accept that. And it's not easy to do. But when I deal with disappointment, for me, and Melon can share his obviously, um, whenever I put in wholesome effort, no matter what it is, whether it's into work, a relationship, conversation, a task, and I know that I honestly gave my best at it, and I go
Mm.
back and I take ownership of what I contributed. If it still doesn't turn out the way I was hoping for, that's okay. Because I can honestly say, man, I know I did everything that I could. I did the uncomfortable things. I did the happy things. I did the nice things. I did the considerate things. I did the hard things. I know I did them. No one can take that from me, and it's not from a part of like toxic pride of like, I know I'm perfect and I know I'm the best person in the world and there's no
Mm.
way that I could be wrong. No, I don't mean it like that at all. Uh, but I know, did I put in the right work, based off a lot of credible resources and people or mentors? Yes, I did. Okay, let it go. I can't
Yeah.
I can't control it anymore. I can't control the outcome. You know, you can do you literally anything is like, my whole brain's like popping right now, but you could literally try to do your best at literally anything and it won't turn out your way. And you just got to say, okay, it's fine. That maybe that's the way it's supposed to be. Maybe I'm being told something from, for me, if it's like a spiritual side, it's like, hey, maybe this isn't supposed to be in your life, and I'm protecting you from it. So that's why you're not getting this. Or you say you want this, but I know your heart really wants something else, or that you really, but you won't tell anybody. It's like for me, the professional side and family, it's like, I can say, hey, I want this professional side so bad, but deep down, it was, man, I really want a family. You know what I mean? And I was
Mm.
disappointed, but I knew that, and I own that, and maybe I wasn't doing everything that I should have to get there. So anyway, that's my point on it. You just take ownership of what you could in the situation, and then accept what you can't control. Because you literally have no power over it, and then take a next step after that and keep moving. What about
Yeah,
you, Lauren? What do you think?
mate, I love that. Certainly, you know, I can't tell you the number of times. I mean, a lot of them already. My major disappointments I've had in my life, from health, professional stuff like getting suspended off Australian F-18 fighter, Hornet course, birth of daughter at Super Prem, other health issues inside the family. So, like, dealing with these things and moving forward in life, I think this is just a big part of, I think, all of us living a full and long life. You're gonna have to be able to deal with disappointments. For me, some of the real key stuff has been taking that time to reflect, to sit and really reflect on what was happening at the time, trying to find lessons that you can move forward with. Like, legit, there's got to be, if you're going to suffer and you already have suffered, so the disappointment's already occurred, don't throw the baby out with the bathwater and not find the lesson. Like, don't have that negative experience be for nothing. At least try and find something that you can take with you in the journey, that you can be moving forward with more knowledge than you had before. So when you've done that reflect and learn piece, in that honest moment of reflection, you have to be thinking part of it, not just finding out, what went wrong specifically and what caused it. Part of it is like, were you doing your best? Not your best now with the knowledge you have looking back, but at the time, were you genuinely doing your best?
Yes.
And if you weren't, that's a huge part of the lesson, right? Like I really wasn't applying myself. There was stuff that I was leaving stuff on the pitch. I was coming off the pitch with half a tank of gas. I was not really putting all my effort in. But if you were doing your best with the knowledge you had at the time, there's like a self-compassion piece that you can include to be like, that younger version of Melon at the time was doing his best, and he didn't have all the answers and he didn't have all the knowledge, but he was no shit doing his best. Because that self-compassion piece can be the bit that is worth including that helps you moving on with the next thing, and letting this disappointment be something that's in your rear vision mirror, not in your windscreen, not out in front of you. So just to summarize that again, it's that reflect and learn. Make sure you're extracting at least a few nuggets of gold out of these disappointing experiences. Have a moment of honest reflection where you're doing your best. If you were, make sure you have some compassion for yourself. And then open your hand, drop the weight, and let's get moving forward with lessons only and without the bitterness.
Very well said. I love the compassionate part for yourself, because I think instantly when something doesn't go our way, we instantly think that we're not good enough or we're not worthy enough to have that in our life. Like, oh, I'll never have that. Oh, I'll never achieve that. Oh, I'll never have this person. That's the instant part, and you feel like you're not good enough. But having compassion for yourself and your journey and what you're doing, absolutely, Melon. So I love that you put that in there, man. Good stuff.
Because all of us are going to have breakdowns, right? And we can, like, as people hoping to have a successful and impactful life, you can sort of be like, well, these shouldn't be happening to me. Or maybe the thought is like, this shouldn't be happening to me now. But there's still going to be disappointments in all of our future. And being able to have that recognition that everyone's going to have setbacks, and the setbacks are going to be different for everyone. And sometimes you hear a story and you get all the pieces and you're like, oh yeah, like you could fully have compassion for that other character having that experience, but you don't feel it for yourself because you're like, I should be better than that. I should have been better than that, or I should be better than that by now. Those sorts of thoughts can be in our mind, especially the ones who are, used to getting after life, especially in a professional setting. A lot of the people who listen to these podcasts would put themselves in those categories, right? And these setbacks don't define us. It's always the moving forward, the carrying on with your journey, aiming for your big mission, your big goals, your North Star. That's the stuff that is going to define you. And being able to move on with this stuff and let it go, I think is really important, Mike.
Well, I hope for the listener that submitted that, I hope we answered your question. I think that was a pretty good one. But also too, man, when we verbalize these things and we have these conversations, it's reinforcement for us too. And every time we record and we sit here, we have a good discussion or a hard topic or get uncomfortable a little bit. I just naturally find my day gets better. I find my week gets better. I find my interactions get better. My relationships get better, because it's just focusing and putting the energy in on talking about these things that we definitely get complacent on, or that we expect to just happen, but we start reducing our effort because again, expectations. And it's just always good to talk about this stuff, man. And I'll tell you, in the last 6 weeks of being deployed, there's a deployment grind no matter where you're at. And now I'm going to be honest, this is one of the easier deployments that I've had in my career. So I'm not going to sound like I'm in some shithole or anything like that, to like fighting for my life every day like a few others. But you're still away, you're impressionable, you're in a different environment, and you can just get lost in distractions. You can get lost in complacency. And it just gets magnified because you're outside of your comfort zone or your circle. and it's just tough, man. So again, covering it down, putting boxes to check along your week of having discussions and reinforcing each other on what you're doing. Hey, you just passed this or you just failed this. All right, hey, let's revisit. Let's talk about it. Let's normalize it and keep the consistency.
Yeah.
It's so important all the time, no matter where you're at in life, in the world. You know, just just have these. Just keep doing it.
And that it's like a fitness program, right? Like the fitness program benefits you while you're doing it, and uh, it can be a compounding effect as well. You get better at training, you understand more, you're able to build on your previous successes, and another week of training can give you more benefit now than it did when you were less experienced and so on. But in the same way, if you stop exercising for 6 weeks, there's a drop, right? Like you got to keep doing it. It's a cycle that is worth remaining in and investing in. So these conversations, like it's important to make sure that they're alive and that they're part of life. Like like I've personally missed this, and I'm uh, committed to making us find the time that works in and around both of our really busy schedules, where you and I can touch base for our own benefit, and I'm sure for the people who tune in and listen, Mike. Because the push-ups don't do themselves, and if you stop doing them, you stop getting the benefit.
Yeah, that holds true all the time. I can't do your push-ups for you, you know. Oh, well.
So, Mike, there's been some pretty significant stuff going down. Just for context, we're recording this on the 14th of July. We're hoping to get this out in the next couple of days. And there's a major news story that has broken in the last 24 hours. Mike, we wanted to just touch on that because it's going to be something we think is going to be very impactful for the people, our audience of first responders and military and their families. So maybe we can just sort of change gears slightly here and start talking about this major news event.
Yes. So before we get into that, because it's pretty rough, pretty dark, I just want to inject some good happiness into this real quick. 96 hours ago was my mother's 70th birthday. And
Yes.
yeah, and like any good 70-year-old woman, she went to the church flea market and just shopped around with her best friend for a little while. So
Oh my goodness.
yeah, and I told Melon this, and he's just like, mate, your mum and mine are the same cloth, and they should hang out
Yeah.
sometime. You know?
Yeah. I don't know that you guys out there listening, but Mike's mum, such a sweet lady, and he's so terrible. And you just think, where did he go wrong? What street did he go down? He got hit in the head. He lost his way. But happy birthday, a big milestone, the big 7-0. And that's exactly the kind of thing that my mum would legit do. Go down to a local church, flea market on her birthday and just have a little potter around.
Mm-hmm.
Love it.
Yep, she went down there with her best friend, and then they went and had lunch at Red Lobster because they love their what is it their bread. They have like their crab bread or whatever it's called or
Oh
whatever.
my God.
Yeah, that's all she needs in her life, man. It's very simple. She's very content, and
And there was also a little point. I just want to share this. Like, so Mike was talking to his mum and saying, did you have a big party? Did you do this? Did you do that? He's like, no, no, no. I just did my little flea market thing. And he was sort of like, oh, you should have had a party. And she was like, no, no, you had a really big party for me before you deployed. And this is the kind of guy Mike is, that he made his pre-deployment departure party really a big thing for his mum, because he knew she was going to be there, and he really wanted to have that acknowledgement piece happen, that gratitude piece, the thing that you see people doing in their acceptance speeches where they thank their parents and stuff. Mike did that really publicly for his mum at his going away, his pre-deployment party. And so that's the kind of son we got here. He sort of brought his mum's birthday party early. So well done, mate.
just doing my best.
It's not all bad. It's just 98% bad.
Fair, very fair. All right, so we got that good feeling rolling. All right, so just for context, Melon is ahead of me now in hours, so he's quite a few hours ahead of me, and I'm ahead of where I usually live, the East Coast time, obviously. So last night it was around midnight, I want to say, where I'm at, when I finally start hearing reports about a shooting that took place in my home state. Uh, from where I'm at, it was about an hour and a half north of where I grew up, in Butler, Pennsylvania. And I had family there. My aunt and my cousins and everybody was at this event. I had a few other friends that were at this event. One of my best friends is a state trooper there in the area, and another friend of mine is with the Secret Service. So they're all okay, thank God. And I've been in contact with each one of them and making sure and collecting some information on what happened. But as I'm sure it's no surprise, but former Vice President Trump was shot at, and there was an attempted assassination where he was actually hit. And to my knowledge, I could be corrected, but I don't think that's happened since President Reagan was in office, when I think he was shot in the stomach. So it's just, going to bed, being overseas, and waking up outside of my country, the bubble, which Melon has done for, over a decade living in Saudi versus all the stuff that's happened in Australia. It really gives me a whole new perspective on like what's going on. And then sitting here listening just already today about foreigners talking about the US and like the perception. And I'm learning, I'm always learning, but man, it was just a terrible thing that we're at this point. And this is chaos. Um, it is bigger than politics. And like Melon said, I think we should just maybe talk about it, and maybe we can focus on what we should be focusing on, and it's not pointing the finger or dividing more, you know.
100%, Mike. Like this is, this is a very apolitical space. We're here as two mates and two military veterans talking about things that are important in our personal lives, in the physical, mental, spiritual, emotional part. And, I don't think that you have to have an opinion either way on any of the policies related to this to know that violence in the political space is a massive, massive marker of division and difficult times ahead. And so Mike and I really wanted to just pause and talk about some of the things we can do. We can practice ourselves personally when things are difficult. And, I feel like one of the real key answers to divisive times, and I feel like this is a very, very divided time. Like Mike and I were just talking before we started about I watched some footage of the Mitt Romney versus Barack Obama political debate back in the day. And like they walked out, shook hands and talked together for like 30 seconds before they started. And like just watch a YouTube summary of it, because it's like they're complimenting each other and staying sort of collegiate the whole way through. There's no real anger. And you're sort of like, man, this feels like it's like footage from the 50s compared to what's been going down, And Mike and I were talking, and I feel like there's like a unity that we can be working towards. Certainly the adversaries we're facing in a strategic sort of global sense would just be loving and working their best to sow discord and division among us. And, I feel like it's time to like really focus on common ground, on the things that we hold in common, the values that we hold, the love of family, the love of parents, the love of living in a free society, which, we certainly enjoy here in Australia as well. And that there's, nothing that these opponents would fear more than seeing unity in difficult times. And that's something that is very important to community, because a lot of us are the ones that are going to be dealing with um, the outcomes should this stuff get worse and should these trajectories take a dark turn. There's going to be a lot of the military families and possibly first responders going to be having to deal with some hard times. So, yeah, what were some of the thoughts you had around the personal stuff that our audience can put into place in these times, Mike?
Well, I always like to, when I get into conversations about differences, you know, I feel like today's society, we're so quick to put each other in a box based
Mm,
off one sentence, one word, one belief,
mm,
whatever, one religion. I mean, you can go down the list. We could always find differences in each other, which no one person is the same, right? So I always go back to that of just like, oh, well, you're not like me and you don't like what I like. Well, of course not. No one person is the exact same as the other. Even as brothers, me and my brother are not the same person. We don't have a lot of the same beliefs and doing things, but he's my flesh and blood brother that I grew up with. So it's like,
mm.
how's that possible? So how am I going to go across, and paint a broad brush picture about everybody? It comes back to this, man. And then I share this a lot. I've been to 34 countries now on 4 continents. I've been in 3 separate uh, types of war and met tons of people from different religions, different backgrounds, cultures, races, you name it. And you know what? Every single one of them has in common. They're human and they all want what's best for their children. I've never
100%.
I've never met anybody that has disagreed. Um, okay, I've never met a sane person that has ever disagreed with that statement. Um, what I mean by that is like, some pretty extreme terrorists and people that I've fought. Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
but it's,
Except those guys.
yeah, but it's understanding perspective and getting out and why things are said, why things are done. Taking a minute to pause and wanting to learn about another person's view or stance on things, or how should I communicate to this person to get to that truth, to get to that honesty and hear a genuine reason. It's just, hey, what do you like? Oh, you like that? Automatically thrown into a box. You're either an extremist or a snowflake. You're red or you're blue. You're racist or you're pro everything.
Mm,
It's shitty. It's exhausting, and
mm.
it to the point where it's just like, dude, I don't even want to have this conversation because I'm just sick and tired of it because you hear it all the time. But where we need to get back to, I don't even know if we've been there. I don't even know when it kind of shifted, but clearly this is definitely a mark in history where it has definitely shifted because you have in this case, you have a former US president who's running for president, who is the lead person for president right now, and he was almost assassinated on US soil.
Yeah.
And you have people upset that the bullet wasn't 1 inch to the side, that he wasn't taken out. What are we doing? I don't agree with every president that comes in. I don't agree with policies. I don't agree with anything. But the entire West is built on, like freaking democratic,
Mm,
like elections and how we go about things. And as society, it is our responsibility to make sure that continues. Every war we fought, uh, all the lives that were lost, everything is to secure those freedoms of doing this peacefully. You should disagree on things. You should debate healthily on things. But dude, I have never heard more slander back and forth in the last couple years. I mean, the fact that, and I'm not getting into why one side's better or not, but the fact that like President Trump, who was just almost assassinated, is being compared to Adolf Hitler. I mean, what kind of labeling and messages are we doing here? Like even President Biden, like you can look at him in multiple different ways in performance and everything in his beliefs that he's been compared to certain people, and other things. Same with Obama, same with Bush, same with Clinton. Like you can go back in history and everybody's already labeled them. But the fact that you can relate Adolf Hitler in the things that that man did to human beings. I mean, we're talking
Mm.
about, let's just say it, committing SS squads to going out and
Yeah.
murdering men, women, and children and gassing people at home and creating camps where people were starved to death and killed 6 million Jews and went around exterminating anybody that didn't have blonde hair or blue eyes, literally exterminating them, killing them in cold blood,
Yeah.
and then would go
There's
home
a
and sit there and have a
there-
drink and
there's a there's a false moral equivalence, when you're making comparisons like that, and you're losing all perspective, and you actually are also diminishing the scale of what these people are doing in a historic level to
yes,
compare anyone to that kind of stuff. Like I remember being in Germany and in Berlin visiting um, the memorial to the murdered Jews of Europe, which is sometimes called the Holocaust Memorial, and it's such. I mean, it can't capture really how horrifying it was what was done, but it is certainly a very moving place to be and to visit, and it's very close to the Brandenburg Gate in the center of Berlin. It's horrifying stuff, and when you cheapen that by comparing, modern disagreements. I mean, there's things we can be doing ourselves. We can be engaging in active listening. We can be talking with people and looking for areas where we have our own biases, our own stereotypes. We can challenge them. We can be like, go meet someone from a different community or a different age group. There's even this big split in our society now, Mike, where they're pitting all of the generations against each other, the Gen Zs versus the millennials versus the Gen X versus the baby boomers. And it's all just, for me, it really, if this was all found in some future to have been deliberately done by major adversary countries, I wouldn't be surprised. Do you know what I mean? Like, at what stage in life have we ever been arguing against like the grandparents and the parents and the kids at the scale it's at now? It just seems so normal.
yeah,
So, if I go and talk with a grandparent, like say someone who's just recently turned 70, I don't find some horrible ogre who's trying to hold me down. If I go and talk with a single mother with kids, I don't like the people that I'm interacting with are different than the stereotypes, is where I'm going there. So I feel like in these times we need to self-reflect and act on our own values, our personal values, and not be like listening to these media labels, this media clickbait type stuff, and that we need to be responsible in our technology use. So things that we're posting or sharing, we need to think about it before we click on stuff, before we transmit, because a lot of this stuff is divisive. A lot of this stuff is playing into the hands of those who would love to see the West divided and to not have unity. Um, so I
well,
mean, it can be difficult to do. But when I talk to people openly and honestly, there's people who've got passion and people of all persuasions of, as you've said, they want better life for their kids. They love their parents. When it get down to it, I've not found and interacted with people who, when I finally understand them, have got bad values at the heart of it. And it's certainly not the way it's portrayed in the media. And I think extreme media and extreme beliefs being propagated online can lead to this kind of crazy behavior becoming seen as normal or acceptable, which absolutely is not.
yeah, it's conditioning, right? It's conditioning you to accept only one narrative and one narrative only,
Mm.
which ultimately changes as the weeks go by. There's these memes out there of like January to December, and it has like the biggest topic from each month. I mean, as big as this is, oh, like 2 weeks from now, something else will happen where there's like a gorilla at a zoo that, was killed, or, whatever. And then that's going to be the next biggest story, because that's what you're being told, that it's a big story and this is a big deal.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's going to change, and it's such shit. And to ride that
Yeah.
roller coaster is not only exhausting, but it's not healthy to ride it. Having healthy consistency throughout all of these things and these discussions, these narratives, these, you know, election years suck anywhere you go, because it's just, how much can I slander each other and send each other under the
Mm.
bus? And then when I win, oh, by the way, now you're my vice president. Oh, hey, by the way, we've been friends this whole time after I just wished death upon his mother. And it's just, it's disgusting. It's sick. Um, we need to return to practicing uh, values within ourselves, within the home, with each other. One thing I did this past week, so I started a Bible study out here, Melon, and we're talking about, our last episode we did was feeding your spirit and what you're putting in and what you're thinking about, but also just balancing yourself throughout the day, throughout the week. And one of the lessons that we talked about was uh, loving your neighbor the way you want to be loved. And when you really break that down, I mean, we had an hour and a half discussion on this about what that really means. When you meet somebody, say your neighbor is completely different from you, and they have different views, and they have different opinions or lifestyle or background or childhood, or, whatever. Why wouldn't you want to go understand why they are that way, why they believe that way? Maybe something happened to them when they were a child. Maybe they grew up without a father. Maybe they grew up without a mother. Maybe they were violently attacked and they don't
Mm.
want anything to happen like that ever again. Like, when you sit and learn about the person, not the narrative, you really learn about humanity and how people are and how they think, what they value. Uh, and ultimately, it comes down to, like, because they care and love something, and understanding that just what you have is not the only thing. And that should be the beautiful part about life, because you're learning holistically about all of life, not just what you think it is. Right? And you still may not agree, right? Like, I have friends that are pretty much complete opposite of me on almost all levels. But you know what? They're very kind. They respect me. I respect them.
Yeah.
They listen. I'll go out to dinner with them and sit there. We'll have conversations. And I ask questions. I'm like, hey, you know what? I don't agree with you on this because I grew up differently, or I don't understand, but I would really like to know why you think that way, instead of just going, oh,
Mm.
no, you're evil, you're a piece of shit, you're the opposite of me, we're enemies, we're this, we're that. But loving your neighbor is like, wouldn't you want to be heard? Don't you want to be understood? Don't you want to share what's genuinely going on in your life, instead of having to choose A or B? Like, it's such a relief when I can just really open up and share something, and someone go, hey, you know what? That's what I get. That you're
Mm.
not crazy. You're not selfish. You're not this. You genuinely care. And you know what? I know who you are now. It makes so much sense to sit there and do it. Why is it so hard? Why is it so hard these days?
Yeah. Stephen Covey has that in his 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. He calls that one, seek first to understand, then to be understood. And so it's very common for people to want to jump in and, get into an argument immediately, trying to state your position and convince the other person. And like, it's just been proven in study after study that just doesn't work. It's not an effective way of bringing about a meaningful change in the way someone thinks about something. And what works and what he advocates is to go through letting them speak first and then stating back to them their position again and again until they're happy that you actually understand their position. And when they're happy, then you speak and say your position. And when I've seen this done, I've seen these videos of this being done in trials and stuff. And it's just an unbelievable space that gets created when someone feels like there's no one resisting them or pulling them or pushing them, that someone's like, they've had their opinion expressed back and they're like, yeah, and all the resistance goes. And then they're in this place of wanting to listen and hear and understand this other person who's been so empathetic and has understood them. And then there's this reciprocal flow that occurs. And so Mike's just summarized basically a major piece out of Stephen R. Covey's seek first to understand and then to be understood. And that when you do that, it feels like there's nothing to argue about all of a sudden. There's people working through, instead of option A and option B, there's all these other options that appear. It's this false A, B narrative. You can only believe this thing or that thing. You're like, well, there's actually a full spectrum in between and heaps of other alternatives that don't look anything like those first two positions. But you don't get a chance to get there when you're in this adversarial arguing your piece. My position is this, which is really common.
Yeah. So one thing, I talked about this the other day. I use it as an example in our study. Was love your enemy the way you'd want to be loved, right? When your enemy's thirsty, give him a drink, and you're just like, absolutely not. Like, why would I do that? It makes no sense. Here's an example, and this is crazy, right? Never would think about this. In 2012, when I was in Afghanistan, we were doing border operations along Pakistan, and it was springtime, so they were falling through the rat lines coming back from Pakistan into Afghanistan to get ready for fighting season. So they were smuggling in weapons and personnel and equipment, and our job was to go in and interdict them and take them out. Well, fast forward, we hit one of the targets, and I had a Taliban fighter on his knees, zip cuffed with a bag over his head. We were taking him with us and back to base. So helos took about 20, 30 minutes to get back to us. So we were just holding perimeter and hanging out. And I hear this guy behind me, and he's saying stuff, and I don't know what he's saying. So I had some time, and I was a young man then. I was 23, 24, and I grabbed my interpreter and I pulled him over and I said, "Hey," I said, "come with me." So I went over and I squatted down in front of this guy and I took the bag off his head and I looked him in the face and I said, "What are you saying right now?" In a very calm voice. I wasn't aggressive. I said, "What are you saying right now?" And he just looked at me. The dude had like tears in his eyes, whether he was high or whether he was actually emotional, I don't know. But I'm just telling you how he looked like. And he said, "You guys think you've won today. Um, what you've done to us over years, you will never, what do you say? How do you say it? You will like never recover." And he said, "You all will burn from the inside." And I just looked at him and I was like, wow, okay. I didn't get aggressive or anything. I mean, I own this guy. He's on his knees. He's flex cuffed. I got the rifle. He doesn't. There's no need for me to come across super heavy. I owned him. But I just looked at him and I was like, well, and I just looked at him and I said, not today. And I put the bag back over his head. And I thought about that. And that popped up in my head this week, 12 years later. And I was thinking about that. Like, that was my enemy. And I sat there and I had that. Why did he say that to me? I really want to understand why he said it. And, I break down some reasons, man. And it's understanding where he grew up, his culture, what he was told, what he experienced what was his experiences with Americans or the West. I guarantee he probably lost family members in some type of military action or strike or whatever, where he had extreme loss or death. And he felt that it was right of like, hey, they are the bad guys and I'm here to take out Westerners or Americans. And I'm like, is he wrong for that? Well, I don't agree with, hey, man, if you don't agree with somebody, go and kill them. But probably something really bad happened to him too. And as a human, can I really blame him? Can I blame him for being angry? Can I blame him for being like the way he is and wanting to kill Westerners because he's we've probably killed people he's known.
Mm.
And dude, if that doesn't bring you down to like a humanity type thing, now humanity and doing a job, like we were there to take them out. We were under orders, we were serving our country, 9/11, like all those other things come into play. 100%. I'm not discounting that. But when it's coming to do a job and following orders, it doesn't always line up with humanity. And I think that's why a lot of veterans struggle because they've had to do things that their humanity says that was a terrible thing. I think that's pretty fair to say. A lot of trauma, a lot of PTSD, a lot of nightmares, a lot of stuff. I mean, it's every war has had this. This isn't a new thing for the GWAT. Um, but when you look at things like that, dude, it really paints a different picture and like what you're doing, and it gets your head out of the space of just your little bubble of like, yep, this is everything and this is what I'm doing and this is how I'm supposed to be and this is right and wrong and good and evil. It's just like, is it? Is this a
Yeah.
is this a deeper thing? And
Like,
you could
like
explore.
certainty, Mike, is like a thing to be aware of, right? Like it's like a thing almost you need to fear when people are so locked into that viewpoint or that opinion that they're unable to take in other information and update their position. They're so certain they're not even going to listen. They're not even going to hear that there could be another way of viewing or experiencing that same stuff that person you're fighting could just be a family man who's doing his best to protect his family, or he could have been manipulated to be there, or 100 other options.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? There's like that certainty in your position that leads you to just a total lack of curiosity as to how that same situation could be viewed from people with different backgrounds, different experiences.
Yeah.
Like it's like the opposite of trying to, when you're listening to people trying to find an area of like common overlap. When you've got this modern era where it's like we're really sort of breaking the society down into small slithers and each group's excluding the others. I've heard it called intersectionality. It's like each part of each subset of male, female, where you are in a socio-economic model, what your cultural background or ethnicity is, what your gender identity, what your sexuality. And we're all dividing up, and it's like you're not part of my group, you're not in this part of the group. It's like, whoa. I heard
Yeah.
a person say that they look for the blanket that can go over the top of it and include everyone. I'm part of the group that loves their mum.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like you can't fight me because we both love our mum.
Right.
We're the same. That you can have this way of trying to find the common, that you can try and find the area of overlap versus I'm certain I know everything I need to know and I don't need to know anymore. That real arrogance piece, that there couldn't be another way to view this situation where we're not stuck in these opposite camps divided against each other.
Well said. It There's no easy way forward with it. And these things that we're talking about are very challenging to do at times because
Mm.
it goes sometimes straight to your core. It could be a topic or an uncomfortable conversation or an incident, and it goes straight to your core because there's been a lot of pain or trauma there. And it's just like, nope, I will never budge on this. Right.
Yeah.
And it's very hard sometimes to do. But as Melon said, how nice is it when you can understand and someone can understand you? And it creates
Mm.
that space to come across as respect for one another as humans, not as red or blue, not as extremists or whatever you want to label us, or racist, sexist, but to sit down
Mm.
and go, hey, I want to know about you. I want to know about your life. I want to know why you think these things. What happened to you to make you believe that? Is it, and then listen to understand, not respond,
Mm.
you know,
It's
and
like a superpower. It's like a superpower, isn't it, Mike? If you
it
are
really is.
you're starting conversations with people like this. You could just hear when Mike was saying that. Then, like, if you had someone come up to you, hey, I just want to hear about you. Tell me about yourself. What are your personal values and where did they come from and who influenced you when you were coming up and how did you get to that position? It's going to be such a different space than when you're going in all guns blazing, ready to tell this person how wrong they are. And, you're going to illuminate them with your wisdom and they're suddenly going to overturn their life's beliefs because you have had a 5-minute conversation with them. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? It's an impossible situation we put ourselves in when we go in aggressively like that.
Yeah. And it's all talking. It's all basic communication skills, which are being diminished. Again, here we go. My opinion is with the narratives, with social media that's being pushed. If you don't believe this is fine, but I've read it, I've seen it, I've experienced it. That's the only reason I truly believe it is because I see it when I'm deployed. But other nations that are trying to split us apart because it's a strategic strategy to break down family and home and unity and party and everything and divide us into groups so that we fight with each other while they benefit.
Yep.
It's a real tactic. It's not new. It's very old. It's just being redone with technology, and it's information warfare. So that is a thing based off actual facts and strategy that you can read about in the national defense strategy of other countries, what we do to counter it. It's in black and white. It's a real thing, and I've lived it. That's why I believe it. Someone can tell me I lie. Someone can tell me they disagree. That's fine. I would love to hear it. But that's why I believe and do the things that I've seen and experienced in my life. And I can read it. I can see it across many platforms in other countries too. So that's an example.
I mean, in the last 7 days out here, Mike, it'll be a new story that's gone now in the face of this major new one. There was an Australian couple who were both born in Russia who've been arrested by our secret intelligence organization for espionage and for supplying secrets back to Russia. Mm-hmm. And so this is the kind of thing that's happening, sort of daily. I think if you were to really get the overview of what's actually occurring out there with cyber and espionage, you'd realize that we really are in a heightened state of, strategic competition is a way to put it. I mean, moving back towards a world that's closer to the Cold War than we've had for 30 years is another way to put it. And there are tactics, as Mike has said, and a divided West is definitely what they want. And this is a time where we should be doing our best to find unity, finding these areas that we have in common, having personal one-on-one conversations, limiting our engagements on social media, limiting our social media consumption. Like there's a lot of stuff that works actively against us.
Yeah.
And, things that come up again and again that when I talk to Mike, I hear, practicing gratitude, mindfulness, defining personal values, engaging in meaningful action. These things are all directly opposed to this division. These are the things that are going to foster community. It's going to foster shared understanding and the ability to move forward in difficult times together. So, we would love to hear from you guys out there on techniques and methods that you would like to see implemented, like what has worked for you in your personal life to enhance unity, to find shared understanding, to generate community, and to connect with people who at first you maybe thought were different. We'd love to hear some of these techniques and strategies that have worked for you guys out there. Are there any other final points you wanted to leave our listeners with tonight, Mike?
Well, as always, anytime we ask people to do things, I better be willing to do them. I know you're the same. That's part of being a leader. If there is somebody that's out there listening, and maybe you're listening to this and think completely differently, please respond to us. And I would personally invite you to the show for us to maybe have a healthy discussion or debate about maybe something that's been one of our episodes or what Melon and I have discussed. And we'll do it the right way. we can have an example of how to be and be respectful of one another. I'd be open to that. I'm not perfect, but man, I want to learn. I want to understand. And, there's good people out there with great things. And just because they're on the other side of the aisle for whatever reason doesn't mean that I don't like you. Like we said, we've already had a lot of people in our life that are completely opposite, but I still love them, you know?
Mm.
And it just goes right back to, just popped in my head was the alcoholic father story is, there was an alcoholic father and he had two sons. 30 years go by. One son turns out to be an alcoholic, just like his father. His life's in
Yeah.
ruin. It's the exact replica of his father. And they asked him, "Why are you the way you are?" Well, that's easy because my father was an alcoholic. And you're like, okay, yeah, that makes sense. And then go across town, the other son, he's happily married, has a wonderful family. He doesn't drink. Um, Good job. Everything looks amazing, beautiful in his life. He's got all this success and love and family. And, you're just kind of like, wow, how did that happen? Why are you the way you are? And he's like, oh, well, that's easy because my father was an alcoholic. Both are right because it's their personal experiences with what happened and the way they chose to go because of it. It's traumatic and people can go left or right with trauma or however, and that's just an example. But to sit back and for me to go, well, the guy with the family is right and the one with the alcohol problem, he's wrong. It's just look what happened. Like really put yourself in their shoes, have some empathy, and truly understand like why they think the way they do, why they do what they do. There's got to be something. They didn't just wake up one day and go, yes, yeah, I'll just do this just for the hell of it. Or maybe they did. I don't know, but you're not going to know unless you don't understand. So,
Yeah. Yeah. Understanding is like step one, I think, on a journey that ends in forgiveness. If there's no understanding, I don't think you can ever really forgive someone. You can maybe accept or move past, but suddenly when you understand, oh, this something happened to this person when they were a child, and then they've lashed out like this years later, all of a sudden you understand how that could have happened, and then that can lead to forgiveness. I think that's a really major point in this time of division. But yeah, I mean, this unity piece and this community and this shared values is really a big part of what this podcast ultimately is about. Pushing back against chaos. We put division and conflict in our communities, in our families, in our towns, in that area. And so this is something very important to us. And as Mike said, we'd love to hear from you. Examples that have worked, examples maybe that haven't worked, contrary views, as Mike said, you feel differently about stuff, please let us know as well. And yeah, we'd love to talk to you. But wow, 6 weeks down, it definitely won't be another 6 weeks. We're committed to finding space and time, despite the challenges of updated time zones and updated work-life balance. But these conversations are very, very important to Mike and I, and we're committed to getting them out to you. So until next time, take care.